Hi, it's Rich Rosen, founder and CEO of Fastcall, and I'm going to talk for a few minutes about international dialing, which is using Fastcall outside of North America. So I'm here in Salesforce, and I just actually pulled up a couple of different records here, and I guess a good place to start. You'll notice that in this particular org, we have a couple different formats for the phone number. Now, these are US numbers actually based here in Los Angeles, where I'm based, Hollywood. Um, but a few of my phone numbers have a +1, and a few just have our US area code. And both of these are fine to dial. You'll see this little phone icon next. But I want to talk about sort of what's expected for international formatting. And I'm going to go through some of the settings here in Fastcall, and we'll also go over to Twilio and talk about sort of what Twilio expects um, us to give them for the phone number, because ultimately Twilio is going to dial the call, so they need to be able to dial the number that we give them. But popping back over to Fastcall for a second, you're going to see that inside of the widget itself, the user can add a home country code. Now, I could say 33. So that would be the home country code. And essentially what we would do there, and this is for the user, we're going to say, okay, well, this is the home country code. I would dial this number without a problem because there's a +1. So what the application is going to, what Fastcall will do is we'll say, um, if there is a +1, then we ignore the home country code and we're going to dial it. Now, in this particular case, we don't have a +1, so we would try to prepend a +33 in front of this number, and this would fail if that home country code was 33. So if if my home country code was 33, then I would need to put a +1 here to tell us, okay, we're dialing outside of our home country code. And there's two ways for us to do that. The users can set their user country code in, so here I did it in the widget, but now it's set here as France. I could set my home country code as the UK. I think here actually they're looking for, we just actually, we're actually looking for the country here. So I can set my home country code as the United Kingdom. Well, that's interesting. Here we go. Doesn't actually tell us what the country code is there. United Kingdom, Isle of Man, Jersey, and don't even know what that is. Anyway, so let's go back to France. That was easier. There we go, France. So here again, the country code is France, and that's my user country code. And then when I go to dial a phone number in on any record, it's going to respect that home country code. If I'm dialing a number in France, I don't need a country code. If I'm going to be dialing a number outside of France, then I'm going to need a country code in the format +1. And I'll just go to pop back over to that Twilio section in a minute. Now, there's one other setting that we give you for country codes, and it's actually down here in the admin settings. We call this regional. You'll see that there is a country code for the org, and this is the org country code. So if in this case I have, and this is actually probably a good example. So in this case, the org country code is +1, which is US, Canada, Puerto Rico. Since I set that user country code to France, I could belong to the org, which is a +1, but my home country code is France, and the Fastcall will respect that. So you can either set a country code for the org, you can set a country code for the user, and we'll respect that. Now, let's go talk about Twilio again. So Twilio, again, is going to expect a phone to be in the E164 international format in order for them to dial it. So as they say, here's a US-based number, 415 area code, dial that. This is the same, and Twilio will dial, if I am in the US, Twilio will dial either of these numbers equally, either just 415 or +1 415. Outside of the US. So here's a UK-based number, 020. If I set my country code, my home country code in the application as plus 44, Fastcall will dial this number plus uh, just like this. We're actually going to dial it like this. We're going to drop this leading zero. So if you set this 44 as your country code, we're going to dial the number like that. So this is what Twilio expects. They expect the number. Now, the one thing that you can't do is if I set my um, home country code as plus 33 for France, for example, I can't dial this number because that we would put a 33 in front of that and that leading zero is not going to work. But we will drop the leading zero if that is within your home country code. If it's not within your home country code, we will not dial that leading zero. You'd have to go in Salesforce and set this number up with the plus 44 in order for us to dial that if that was not your home country code. So this is the Twilio page on um, international phone formats. There's one other thing well, let's keep going here. So we talked about the org default, the user country code. So in the section on Twilio, here we are. We give you some links to some other Twilio pages, managing international rights for voice calls in Twilio. This is where Twilio is where Twilio lists all the countries where you are able to dial, and I'm pretty sure by default it's North America. And I think all of these are checked. I'm not certain about that. I haven't looked at it new, but you can see even in this particular, and this is just a developer account we use for testing in Twilio, you can see that some of these countries are not selected. So we have most of South America, looks like we have Europe, but not all of Europe, so there's Cyprus. So some of these countries, Twilio is not enabling in Asia. They're not enabling by default, either for convenience or perhaps for cost, because the cost does vary. You'll see they'll give you more information. So if, for example, you're using Fastcall in Australia, then you're going to need to come in here and you're going to have to enable rights for those countries. If you're going to call all over the world, you're going to have to enable all of these selections. And this is the only step that you do outside of the Fastcall application. The only step that you'll ever have to do in Twilio and not in Fastcall is this step, is enabling countries that are outside of North America. And again, we give you the link from the application here. There's also a page for SMS, which is less common, but the link is here. So um, if you set up the Fastcall and you're going to be using it worldwide, this is the only step that you do have to take care of directly in Twilio and not in Fastcall. Provisioning phone numbers, occasionally Twilio requires an address. This varies. It's not required in the US, but it is required around the world. I think Australia, maybe Germany. Twilio will tell you, but if Twilio comes back when you are trying to provision a phone number in our application, if they come back and say, hey, you need an address, you're going to add that address here. Quite honestly, Twilio is not, they're not going to examine the address perfectly as long as the country matches. But you do need, in some cases, they're going to tell you that you need to have a local address to provision a number. In a few cases, far fewer, and it might be Australia, Twilio tells you that you have to have an address that's not in the country to provision a phone number. It just kind of varies, and Twilio does give some more of that information as well if you need it. But if they ask for an address, you can add it here. It's not hard to do. So that you actually will add here in the application, but adding the international rights you do back is the only step that you're going to do back in Twilio. Okay, so we talked about formatting. We talked about adding country codes for the user, for the org. We talked about international rights. I don't think there's much else in terms of using Fastcall outside of North America. But if you do have any questions, send us an email, support@fastcall.com, and we will gladly get you some help. Of course, the language localization is managed by Salesforce, so that's outside of our application and really has nothing to do with Twilio. Great, thank you for the time, and shoot us an email if you have any additional questions.